Good morning, everybody. This is your first Art 390 commentary. I'm going to kind of elaborate on what it means for abstract thinking, comment on a few of y'all's responses, and really elaborate with that idea. And then I'm going to comment on a few of the blind contour pieces. As far as the abstract thinking, most of you guys I got back to, and I'm still reading up on that, but great answers. It was interesting to me how some of y'all were really saying that, abstract thinking is more important or is important in art, or, you didn't process it, that it could be important in core subjects. So, for me, I just want to say that abstract thinking is a way to open up people's ideas, their concepts. It's obviously more concept-based, and it doesn't have to be something that feels like extra work. As far as integrating it into your curriculum and putting it into your lesson plans, I don't want it to be something that's like, oh, this is going to be, I have to add this extra activity or something. A lot of abstract thinking and activities can come from conversations. Within my own classroom when I was teaching, and for here, my number one goal is to create a culture of respect. That in itself is going to propel abstract thinking. And the reason is because a lot of these ideas that are creative are more personal. There's no answer. There's no right way to do something. And so if our students don't feel comfortable enough to share their opinion or share their ideas, or it may not be, they may be thinking they're making a mistake because it's something that they're creating. You just want to make sure to create that culture of respect from day one. I do this by sharing my own personal experiences, and it's obviously in art, it's very different because art, you're working through your personal experiences. But even with math, science, social studies, there's all things within your own personal experiences that have to inspire you and that have to do with what you're teaching. Hopefully, you're not teaching a subject or wanting to teach a subject that you have no passion about. So share that with your kids. Why are you doing what you're doing? That's something that I think that we assume people know because we're in that position, but they don't know about your hike with your grandfather when you were in 6th grade and you absolutely love to talk about rocks, and so now you're teaching science. They don't know those things. So share little tidbits of those along the way. That will create a classroom culture of respect, openness, that will in turn create abstract thinking and creativity. Once they're confident and comfortable, that's when, if they do make a mistake, they're not so embarrassed. They're not so scared to say the wrong thing. They're going to be more adventurous in the classroom overall. Now, one thing I do want to comment on as well is just because you have abstract thinking and more creative thought does not mean that it's all about freedom and, no organization and all this stuff. That is false. Within the core subjects especially, you have pretty straightforward curriculum and you have to be organized. Being free in your thought doesn't mean you're a disorganized person. I think that's a misconception of artists, period, is that they're crazy and all over the place. But I found in my own personal practice, we call it artistic practice, that being organized and staying on top of things and staying on top of dates have allowed more spontaneity within the classroom setting. If the students don't know your expectations and they don't understand why they're doing what they're doing, they're going to, little kids are more than likely going to Still be sweet about it. Middle school kids, no shame. They're not going to be nice to you if they can read the fact that you're disorganized. So just because we're in a classroom just because this section is more about art and free thinking and abstract thinking, do not get that confused with being disorganized. And I'll talk along throughout the semester how you can smoothly place these things into your scheduling, into your weekly activities that can help you just naturally, that it's going to be a part of the process. And then soon enough, those kids are going to know what you're doing, what to expect, and that's going to be helpful too. One of my favorite things that someone said was build confidence. That is absolutely true. Abstract thinking, creative thinking is going to build confidence because it's coming from here and it's coming from here. Students, most of y'all have been, when I was a kid, I was tested too, standardized testing. That's just a part of our culture. We can't change it, but we can also not fall into this mechanical way of thinking where each person's the same, each person should have the same outcome, and all that stuff. So there's different ways within the thinking process that you can build confidence. So that was a great answer. A lot of you guys said thinking outside of the box, which I think that that's a good response, but I would like you as a teacher to get to a place where there is no box. I don't mean, again, don't confuse that with no structure, no expectation, no curriculum. That's not what I'm talking about. But when we place the thought of thinking outside of the box, that means that there's a box of expectations. And sometimes when you go into a situation or a scenario where you have expectations, let me rephrase that. You have expectations in terms of how a student may act, or the assumption of a student, or, you're going to have students coming from all walks of life, all different places, all different parental makeups, how they're raised, what they eat, and all of those things, all of our story, who we are, impacts the way we learn. So what you can control is your curriculum and your organization and your calendar and your smile and all that stuff. But what you can't control is what they bring to the classroom. And that's where, the box in itself has to be kind of broken, in my opinion. And so they know that no matter what, that you're open. It's not to say that you're crossing a boundary. It's not to say that you're oversharing. It's just simply that the box may be three-sided to where it's open on the inside. And that's you as a teacher. And that's going to be, again, that's a success. That's how they're going to feel successful when they're in the classroom and they're learning. And that's that. Last thing I want to touch on with the abstract thinking is, what's so funny about all of this is that we go to college, we take these classes, and within these classes, we talk about, how we're supposed to teach, what we're supposed to teach. We learn different concepts and all this stuff, but what we don't remember is that children are the number one people to do all of this abstract thinking naturally. I don't care if they're 12. I don't care if they're 2 years old, or 22. Every single one of us was a child at one point in our lives. And so we can tap into that if we allow it. And so within teaching, especially elementary school, sometimes you need to be the student. That's not lowering your position as the adult or as the responsible one or as a teacher, but just sometimes you can learn from them as much as they're learning from you. And to be an open, three-sided box is to welcoming what they're taking from the lesson and honoring that. It's not simply, and this is just in my own experience, it's not just simply just not acknowledging that. And that is, children do this on their own. That's what one of the giftings they are as little human beings, is that they're fearless, and they're not formed yet. Some of their thoughts are not formed yet. And so what's an important task is that you are forming part of that. You are writing part of their history. And so, not to scare you with that, but that's what's cool is that you're in charge of how to structure that, but then they're there to also be teachers and to provide feedback. And it's just really cool once they grasp something that they can share their hearts about that, or their knowledge, or you just never know. You never know what is going to happen in the classroom when the student feels safe to share. So if you have any other thoughts on that, we'll be talking about that all semester. I do abstract artwork. Some of y'all may have checked out my website. So it's something that I'm constantly processing and thinking about. I'm really interested in it. And one of my research methods is like abstraction through age, and how a lot of artists, most of y'all have probably seen Pablo Picasso, Henri Matisse, Paul Klee. Those artists were very interested in their thought process, or their childlike thought process. So how we age as people, but how the root of our childhood continues to travel with us. So that's just kind of my own interest. But as far as the blind contour self-portrait, most of y'all did a good job. Some of you guys lifted up your pencil or pen, and the goal of the blind contour was to keep contact with the paper at all times. And if you had to move over to your eye, you leave contact with the paper at all times. They kind of said in the video, but this is just you're drawing from what you see and not from what you memorize. We can get into a habit to draw from what we remember ourselves to look like instead of what we truly look like. That activity you could do in any classroom, doesn't matter the subject. It's just something fun to get them going. And it's also something that there's no wrong, well, if you lift up your pencil, but there's no, they all look goofy and silly and quirky, and that's the point. So that was the commentary for this week, and hopefully I'll get into a habit of doing this more often. But I just wanted to, add to that conversation and really have a conversation, because with an online forum, that can be hard to do. So this week you're going to be analyzing how to talk about artwork, and just learning how to analyze anything, period, is going to make not only your students better, but you better, a better visual person of what you're looking at and what you're viewing and all that stuff. So I hope everybody had a good first week. Oh, touching on the 502, 503 stuff, I am so sorry for that. I didn't think it was going to be such a big deal, and next time I'll know to do it before the semester starts. But if you were in 502, the class is ending, the dates, your work is still going to exist, and I'm still going to put, if some of you missed transferring it to 503, or if it didn't let you, the class is going to end this Wednesday, today's the 3rd, right? The 5th, September 5th. So you will no longer be able to post in that. Everyone will be in section 503, and don't worry about your schedules. I contacted tech support, and you are registered in one section, but you may be added to another in the Brightspace. So it's not going to impact your grades at the end of the semester or anything else. That's also just a way for me to break you up into small groups and kind of do more group activities, and then I can post all from one place and update the class easier. So I'm sorry for that confusion. I appreciate everybody for the flexibility, but I think after this week, post in 503, do updates in 503, check up in 503, and it'll all be smooth. Week 3 and week 4, my goal is to get those posted this week. Week 4 is pretty heavy on content. So, you know, just plan accordingly to get your work done. And like I said, I'm gonna get week 3 and week 4 uploaded all this week, so y'all can start to look at that in advance and kind of work on that. I also want to try to do a course calendar this week, an overview of the semester with the breaks integrated in. So that's my goals. That's my own personal goals this week. As usual, if you have any questions or comments, please email me. Don't forget about the survey of online hours. If y'all want those, I'm totally open to doing that. I just need to know when you would want them, to where instead of having to email me, you would have a direct chat room with me. We could do a chat room within the D2L website to where we could talk back and forth immediately if you have a question or a comment or concern, or you want to talk about abstract art or something you've seen. It doesn't have to be a specific confusion question. So just let me know, and we will keep trucking along. Hope everybody's having a good Labor Day and you had a good football weekend. Both of my teams lost. Boo. That's okay. So keep working, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.